So not too long ago, we upgraded the steering on this, did a crossover, high steer, crossover steer on here. And it was a low buck build. I just got the steering arms and mounted those to the knuckles. Upgraded the steering box and the tie rod and pitman arm. East West Off-Road, Northwest company, offered me a complete kit and with the knuckles and all that. Their product, it's American made. Any others, complete kits like this are about twice as much. So we're going to upgrade my upgrade and make this thing better. All right. All right, we got the pickup in the shop. I'm going to jack this up, get it up on jack stands, get the wheels off of it, and start disassembling everything that's there. When you pull your caliper off, don't just hang it off the brake line. Get yourself a hook of some sort and hang it off that. You don't want to damage your brake line. All right, now I need my hub socket. Now I can pull this off. I'll try not to drop the bearings on the floor. Okay. Oh, last time I had this off, I seized everything, figuring if I ever had to take it apart, it'd come apart good. And by golly, it sure did. Okay, I am going to pull this axle out. All right, now I can get the ball joints out. Tie rod. Now I have a pickle fork for removing tie rod ends. Every time I use it, I destroy this rubber seal. And really, you can just whack this pretty hard right here, anywhere, even for your ball joints, same thing. Hit this area where that tapered seat is, and that will knock, typically, might take a few hits, but typically you can knock your tie rod end or your tapered ball joint, tie rod, whatever will pop out. Okay, so I can loosen all this up. When I loosen these up to take this off, I loosen it up and leave about a thread or so still engaged. That way, when I knock it loose, it doesn't fall down and whack the floor real hard. There. Whoop. Hit the floor anyways. Much lower velocity. Okay, so I got this stripped down. Old knuckles off. So now we can assemble that knuckle and throw it on here, and I'll have to finish assembling it on here, but we'll get that done here. Here is the kit. This kit comes with new steering knuckles, steering arms, the hardware for the steering arms, bungs, right and left, new ball joints for the knuckles, a new drop pitman arm, drag link and tie rod ends. That's a complete kit. We'll assemble the ball joints, get the knuckles on, then we can start putting everything else together. Well, there's only one thing I need off of this old knuckle, off of both of them, and that's these studs here. So I'm going to knock them out and then drive them into the new knuckles. So these are just like an old wheel stud for a car. They're knurled right in here. And so we can just drive these right back into the new knuckle. Okay, so I'm just going to use this old knuckle. And that way my studs will go through here and they have a relief to sit into. So I'm not trying to bang them into something. Now before I install these, I am going to anti-seize these knurls. They'll go in a lot easier. And I'll wear this stuff like lipstick. I'll look like the Tin Man here before I'm done, if I only had a heart. So I am going to use a drift to knock these in. I also use that to knock them out so I didn't booger up the threads. That's the last thing you want to do. Otherwise you're taking a trip to the parts store to get something that they probably don't carry. Alright, here's my ball joints. They're a really good quality looking ball joint. Upper and lower. So I got two of them. They look like the same taper here on these ball joints. One of them is taller and has a hole for a cotter pin. That will be the upper. So I think I will do the lower first. Now this bottom one's got a recess for a C-clip. We will put that in. There. And we can put the Zerk back in. Now let's get the upper. Put these dust boots back on there. So this top one has a hole for a Zerk. We will leave that in until we're done greasing it. Once we get done greasing this, before we put the axle in, we'll put the plug in it. Because the U-joint will hit this. The castle nut goes on top with the cotter pin. I'll drop that in there. That one's ready to bolt on. Well, this inner adjustment nut is still in here. I'm going to back that out most of the way. Throw the knuckle in. I'm only going to put the bottom nut in for now. Just enough to keep that from falling out. Then I'll just tighten this up. That inner tapered shaft just wants to spin inside the hole because there's nothing to hold it. So you put a jack underneath it that brings it up and seats it. Then you can run that nut down. It's kind of a pain, but what you got to do. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and torque this while I'm here. We'll go 30 pounds and then we'll go to 70. Okay. All right, I'll adjust this down and torque it to 50 pounds. Whoops. All right, that's 50. All right, this upper ball joint nut here gets torqued at 100. Oh, that hole lines up. All right. Before we forget, we'll shoot some grease in there. All right. And I'm pretty sure this zerk on this upper ball joint will stick down far enough to hit the axle. So I'm going to install that little cap, and that'll keep that from leaking out grease and from breaking off. Okay, now let's get studs in here. All right, some of these studs are more obvious than others. There's a short threaded side and a long threaded side. We're going to put the short side in. And I am going to use some Loctite. So there's several ways of doing these, putting studs like this in. And I don't know which way is really the faster. I think this way sometimes is faster. But you can double nut, run a nut down and then a jam nut. Then you could use a ratchet to run them in, which seems like it'd be fast, but you still got to mess with putting nuts on there, double nutting them. This way seems fast. The most important thing is not to booger up the threads, not to mess this up so much that those cones don't slip down all the way. Oh, we're almost there. I'm going to put some Loctite on here too. Don't know for sure that you need it because these are lock nuts, but why not? And then these get torqued to 90 pounds. Now I can go ahead and put in my axle. So now would be a good time if you wanted to upgrade your axles. Be a perfect time to do that. I am doing that right now because I broke one. Haha. Let's get this on here. I always put a little dab of grease in here for these little needle bearings. They never get serviced. All right, got to torque these 65. And if you don't know this already, when you're torquing stuff like this, do a back and forth cross action, like a star pattern. If you're doing wheels or engine heads, spindles. Okay, 60 pounds. All right, when you're putting these on, these axle nuts, use a tool. Rent one, buy one, borrow one, and I've said it before, don't steal one. But put it on with a socket. I can understand if you're broke down in the middle of nowhere and all you have is a punch or a screwdriver or a chisel. I can understand that. But if you're doing it every day like that, stop. Get you one of these. They're not very expensive. You're going to use it more than one time. This inner one, there we go. Just going to snug it up. Turn the wheel a little bit. And then just back it off a quarter turn or so. Somewhere around there. You may have to move it to get your lock ring on. Got lucky. That was perfect. Things are going good. And then we'll put this outer one on. And these ones are supposed to be torqued really high. I think the one book I read said 160 pounds. My torque wrench don't go that high. It seems kind of excessive, but you don't want it coming apart. And also, the hard part is getting your socket to stay in there. So I just pretty much torque these as high as I can get them. And I don't know what the torque spec is on these brake caliper bolts. I usually run them up snug and give them a couple of ooga doogas. All right. Now, throw the hub on. Unlocked. All right, so now got this all done. Now I got to do the steering here. So here's the two-wheel drive steering box. As you can see, it's slightly tapered and splined all the way down, and the nut goes on the bottom to hold it in place. This one here is pretty much just straight up and down. It has a few splines on it here, and it has a keeper bolt that goes through it right here to lock it in place. Other than that, they're virtually the same box. All right, so I'm measuring my toe. Got my toe set good. Now, knowing that that's squared up the way I want it, the toe set, now I can measure my tie rod in. And I'm going to measure it from this part of the bung over to the other one. That's where that DOM is going to slip over. So I'm going to set this where it's pretty much in line with the other one. And then I'm going to measure. So you don't have to be 100% exact. Like you could be off a 1/16 of an inch because there's so much adjustment on these. But you want to be pretty thorough that you're not cutting it 1 inch short or 2 inches short. If you cut it too long, okay. But make sure that you're not wasting your DOM tubing. That stuff's expensive. But anyhow, set your tubing with your toe, knowing that your toe is still set right. Set your tubing on the bungs. Double check your fitment, then you could tack it, and then once you get it tacked, pull it out, weld it all up. Then you know 100% that you're set the way you want it. So we're gonna cut some tubing. There, I got my drag link, my tie rod ready to throw in. At this point, I got everything bolted up, greased. I just need to throw tires on it and get it back on the ground. One thing I want to mention on this is when I did the suspension work on here, I did a 52-inch spring conversion, which actually relocated my front end forward about 4 inches. By doing that, when I went to put the drag link and tie rod in, the tie rod should be located in the back set of holes, and the tie rod or the drag link should come to the front. Because I moved my axle forward 4 inches, my tie rod would be located right directly underneath the drag link where it attaches to the pitman arm. So I couldn't do that. So I reversed that, put the tie rod in the front and the drag link in the back. which works okay. There is a little steering issue. It lags a little bit slow feeling, but I'm not worried about it. The next video on this thing, I'm going to install a hydro assist kit. That will take care of any problems pertaining to that. First off, I'd like to thank East West Off-Road for giving me the opportunity, providing me with this kit to put on here to upgrade what I have, to demonstrate it, and to show the quality of this kit. Now this kit, it's a great kit. It's American-made products, maybe a third of the cost of something like Reed Racing, which these are American-made knuckles. When I assembled them, I had zero problems putting anything together and mounting them on this pickup. They also had the larger pad with the 4 studs for the steering arms, as opposed to these original ones only had 3, only enough room for 3. So that's already better. And this kit, with all the stuff that came in the kit, the new ball joints, knuckles, steering arms, tie rod ends, pitman arm, and drag link ends, essentially I've rebuilt the whole front end of this thing, except for the axles, which I did replace axles and U-joints. So the only thing left would be bearings, and I did grease those. They're in great shape, so I'm in good shape. There's nothing left to do on the front end of this other than my hydro steer that I want to do, especially with 37-inch tires. That really will help a lot. Thank you for watching and for subscribing. If you haven't, please do. And leave a comment if you have questions or thoughts or concerns about this. I'd appreciate it. We could share that with everybody. And anyhow, we'll catch up with you guys later. Thanks. Bye.